One of the most important policy challenges for land use planning tools in Latin America is the interaction between the national level and the subnational governments, both regional and provincial districts. Latin American countries have put over the table different alternatives, different policies, and there are some lessons that we can draw from our experience. We are pleased to have with us in this opportunity Professor Nicole Bernet. She is one of the leader geographers in Peru and in Latin America, and she is going to share with us her knowledge on the different lessons in national systems in land use planning.
I think in all of our countries we do have a very similar conditions. When a mining company starts to explore an area, we have a lot of expectative from the people living in that areas. If it's not possible to negotiate it with the owner, what happens with the surface land if there's no agreement which can be reached with the surface owner, the concessionaire can apply to the General Mining Bureau for the expropriation or temporary occupation of the land, which will be granted if the land is indispensable for the development of the mining project. This case will be clearly impossible in a country as Peru, because it will be a very social, nearly a social revolution. You could not expropriate lands like that. In Peru, actually, we don't have also a national system of land planning. Right now, we are in a very important moment of change, of transition between the old way of conceiving the ecological, economical zoning as the only tool and the only way of doing land planning, and another way which will be, we hope, a better way to understand the territory with all its potentialities and limitations, including mining potentialities, and the need to manage it with appropriate tool, thinking ecological, economical zoning, not only on an agrarian point of view, but on ecosystemic services.
Professor Bernet is very strong in her opinion regarding what is the set of information that is missing in these national systems, not only from the point of view of social and economic indicators, but specifically from the point of view of ecological and environmental indicators. Let's listen to what she has to say about, for example, environmental and ecosystem services, and how information on these ecosystem services is crucial in order to design compensation mechanisms for the development of extractive industries and the incorporation of extractive industries in land use planning.
I think it's not only feasible, but it's quite urgent for all our countries, especially for ones which are lacking of land use policies, as Peru, Colombia, Argentina, Chile, and Venezuela have not completely achieved land use policy, but partial ones, and it's easier. But I think that mining is one of the most important activities for a modern daily life, and for economic development of the countries. And today we do have an important lack of satisfaction over distribution of the benefits of extractive development, legacy of conflicts, uncertain land tenure. Land planning has to oriented the human development, but also territorial development on an ethical way. And change this situation requires to use co-planning and co-monitoring tools for multi-direction accountability, transparency, and participation. In this sense, we have to generate information. We have to produce informations measuring the strengths and weakness of the different ecosystems, their response, the actual ways of managing ecosystem service to be able to identify promising opportunities for enhancing human well-being. It's very important to measure how much the ecosystem service is bringing of social well-being, and how actually these relations between the use of ecosystems and human well-being is facilitating conserving ecosystems.
We are all eager to learn about successful stories in Latin America, where national and regional governments have been able to incorporate extractive industries projects within land use policies and land use tools. The territorial approach to rural development that is nowadays being implemented in Latin America doesn't seem to have a clear-cut example of this successful story. Professor Vernet is going to share with us some reflections, some feedback from a case in Guinea, in Africa, where Rio Tinto Corporation has implemented a highly interested example on how land use planning tools and environmental management can be interlinked with the development of an extractive industries project.
I will not give a positive case in South America, because we do have in many of our countries not only social problems, but social problems very related with narco-traffic. But I will take the case of an extractive industry which operated in our country, Rio Tinto, and which have a very positive case in Guinea, where they have a good strategy to aim for a net positive impact on high value biodiversity. Their plan includes a detailed map of land use zones and a precise rights and activities available in each zone for the different stakeholders. Local communities had lost their access to the forest in Guinea, where they are operated now, and their harvesting rights de facto removed approximately 10 years ago. The new zoning plan gives back to local communities most of the periphery of their forest with their coffee, their cocoa, avocado and palm oil plantations exist, as well as some areas of historical rice cultivation. It conserves the score of the forest as a strict protection zone under Guinean law. Community nature resource used in their mining zone has been maintained until safety measures need to be put in place. We don't have other case like that with both work of government and mining industry in South America. But we do have a case with Xstrata Las Bambas, which is a good example when a government is not actuating directly, but in all the mining law and environmental law, we do have to practice a participatory approach with communities. And Las Bambas has a very successful participatory approach, which means a shift in corporate culture and roles, community channels of communication, strategic thinking, and also business practices and combinations. But we do have to remember that participatory tools include training and capacity building, and a lot of time to do that, access to information and all the informations, and mutually agreed upon metrics for monitoring, which is quite difficult. Only in that way it will be possible to assure good neighbor agreements with co-produced commitments constructed and agreed between companies and communities.